School PR professionals spend a week or two each year networking, if they're lucky. We pour into this professional development, and the conversations drive us in our work. Collaboration is one of the best parts of our job, but then we go back to our daily work and the buzz of bright conversations and innovation starts to wear off.
Welcome to School PR Happy Hour. We seek to create a shared space of collaboration and an opportunity to continue those conversations long after the closing sessions of our state and national conferences.
We are a community of communicators that lean on each other in hard times and learn from each other regularly.
This podcast is about just that, getting to know each other better and sharing our passions about furthering education, one story at a time.
Welcome to School PR Happy Hour. I'm your host, Erin McCann. Today we're here with Jason Wheeler. Jason is the marketing coordinator for Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD, and that's very near Dallas in Texas. So Jason, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Erin. I'm very glad to be here.
It's an honor to have you. And so Jason, you are doing some really cool, very interesting things with marketing, especially around social media. But before we jump into that, I'd really love to just hear more about your background and kind of how you found your way to school public relations.
Sure. I've actually been in education for 18 years. I started out as a teacher, and it was very weird how I got into teaching. I was actually in sales for 1 year out of college, and I was sitting at my brother's football game in 8th grade, and we're 11 and a half years apart, so he's a little bit younger than I am. And a principal that I was her student aide in high school was actually there, and she goes, "Jason, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm in sales. I don't know if I really like it or not." She goes, "You're going to become a teacher." So she goes, "I'm going to help you. You're going to become my teacher, and you're going to work for me." So she set me up in this program, alternative certification, and she gave me a long-term sub job. And then the next semester after my sub job, I was actually a full-time Texas history teacher. And I happened to start a thing called Falcon Broadcast News, and I started learning as much as I could about video and audio. And it became a very, very popular class. And so we just launched an Academy for Media Arts and Technology in our district at one of our high schools. And the high school heard of the stuff I was doing at the middle school, and they asked me to become a video production teacher. So as I was the video production teacher, then eventually became the director of the academy at R.L. Turner High School, I started working very closely with the strategic communications team. And so they had me making videos, they had me do some small marketing stuff, and I was working more and more with the team. And our superintendent at the time, he was very interested of the way universities were marketing, and we were seeing a lot of charter school activity in our district. So he created a position of this marketing coordinator, and I applied and ended up getting the job. And I've been here, this going on my 6th year. So I've really tried to transform how we do social media, how we do a lot of our marketing. I'm a really big advocate of content marketing. So I sort of took, schools aren't used to marketing. I sort of infused marketing into our system to sort of combat the charter schools and the private schools and sort of help our enrollment. So that's sort of how I got started in the profession.
So you were sort of handpicked by the superintendent.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I'm very into video. I've dabbled in, directing short films and things like that. So I love video, and video's become so popular as a marketing tool that I just happened to get in good, I guess, with the communications team because I could actually, film a video. And so I guess the rest is history. So video helped me sort of get in good with the superintendent. He liked what I was doing, so that always helps.
Hey, it's all about right place, right time. All right, so you're handpicked by the superintendent. You've been in your position about 6 years now. I thought that was really interesting that you said that you're starting to see a lot of competition from charter schools and other schools of choice, and that's why your position was created. So when you came in, knowing that you were immediately dealing with other forms of competition, how did that sort of inform the work you do? And then what was the first thing that you did to sort of position your district as the district of choice?
Yeah, definitely. So I will tell you that our enrollment was declining in the years, a couple years before I started the position. And it sort of has leveled off and started to go back up. But we were seeing, we have about 10 charter schools within our district boundaries, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, there was 8, and now 2 more are being added this next school year. And one of them is directly across the street from our high school. So we always saw the private school, we weren't too worried about that because, those sometimes decisions are made for other purposes. But the charter schools were really taking a chunk. And at one time, it was reported almost 3,000 of our students that are supposed to go to CFBISD actually are going to charter schools. So 3,000 is a lot of money. We have about 26,000 students.
Okay, so that's a pretty good number of kids.
Yeah, it is. We were a fairly, medium-sized district for the Dallas area, but we're, fairly large when it comes to, a lot of districts in Texas. And, we've been hovering around that 25,500, 26,000 for the last 10 years. And so we were seeing a slight decline, but we were also seeing just sort of stagnant growth. And a lot of that was in the middle school area. A lot of people were leaving when it came time for middle school. So how that sort of changed the way I thought of the position was, definitely schools just don't really take a marketing approach, especially 6 years ago when I started. It wasn't really a thing. So this was sort of innovative on our superintendent's part. You were seeing some of the larger school districts like Dallas ISD do it because they were just so large. But a lot of people, if they were going to do something, it was usually just like a newsletter or, they hired an outside company if they really wanted to make a big push. But to have an internal marketing department was sort of different at the time. So the first thing I did was a lot to do with social media because I saw the trends. So many of our parents, so many of our students were on social media. So the first thing I did is I evaluated, of course, what we were already doing. And I noticed that we didn't use a lot of visuals. I mean, we post a picture every once in a while on social media, but we're a visual society. So the first thing I told my superintendent and my boss was, hey, I'm going to transform about 99% of what we're going to do on social media is going to be visual, and everything is going to either have to have a picture, some type of graphic, or a video, and sort of just transfer it from there. We were really big on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So I just, Instagram's already a visual platform, but everything on Facebook, everything on Twitter had to have some type of visual. So that was sort of the first big change I made, was going in and just making sure the schools knew this new philosophy change, and that we were doing it at the district level to sort of pattern, what a good social media post looks like, and just basically transform the way we're doing social media, changed it, shifted it more to a visual type platform.
So before, was your district mostly just sort of like posting either news articles or just quick status updates, like more text heavy is what you're saying?
Yes, it was basically just copy and pasting from the website and not even putting a picture with that information. So it was just a lot of, congratulations to the band. And that was basically, all that was there. So there was no like story behind it, and there's definitely no visual story behind it. So I definitely wanted to transform that and just make it visual. And then the second thing that I wanted to do is I came into the district and I, started hearing a lot about content marketing. I'm like a nerd when it comes to marketing. I read every book, I read every article, every blog, listen to every podcast. So the trend was starting to become content marketing, which basically what that means is just basically content marketing is giving valuable, helpful information to your customers, and our customers at, being parents or students. So instead of trying to sell, you would help. Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a marketer, and be careful looking him up on YouTube. He likes to use some colorful language sometimes, but he's a really good marketing guy in the fact that he just looks at the trends and knows what's happening. And he came out with a book at the time called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And what that means is you help them. And then when you become sort of the trusted expert, or you give, people are more likely to give back in return. So you give a little to your parents, give a little bit, and then ask them to enroll, or ask them to sign up for this program, or ask them to volunteer, or be a mentor. So the more you help, the more you become a trusted expert. They're going to trust you. And so a lot of the social media that we did, and a lot of the things that we implemented, I implemented a parenting blog and a lot of Facebook Live around just helping parents become better parents. And so, and what sort of triggered this as well is one of my first inspires I ever went to was in Baltimore. And the first session I went to is it said the number one reason why parents choose educational choice for their student or their child is to look like competent parents.
So I've heard you say this before.
Yeah.
So So for our audience, Jason does a lot of public speaking. I was really privileged to hear him speak at the TCU Certified Public Communicator Program, which we'll talk about on another episode. And so, Jason, I've heard you say this before. And in fact, I even wrote that in my notes. And there's something about that that just feels very bizarre to me. So are you saying that they're not so concerned about making very informed choices? They just want to look like they're making informed choices?
And that's what the studies show. It's like they even gave us a chart, like a hierarchy of what. Luckily, society's not going all downhill, and the second choice was to have a successful student, and their child was successful. But the number one reason was to look competent in front of other parents,
Wow.
which sort of blew me away. But if you think of society, I mean, that's almost what social media is about. We only post the good things. We want to brag about when we go on a trip or when our kid walks their first steps and things like that. So a lot of what people feel is like they care what other people think about them.
Sure.
It's just people are driven by that. So I don't think it would be any different that, if your kid's in a really bad school, they feel that they're going to be judged because of that. So it's just one of those things where you sort of strike where you can get them, and helping them become a better parent and helping them make a more informed choice about their educational decisions is sort of where content marketing comes in, and they're going to like that. I mean, the first thing that I do, I'm comparing it to buying a car to putting my kid in school, but first thing I do will Google and see what people say about it, see what look at visuals on it, see, the schematics of a car. And the same thing when I moved into my new house, the first thing I did was I looked up on Google and looked at the ratings of the schools, which, we know that ratings aren't the end all be all of things, because we know those can be a little manipulated sometimes. It don't really mean that it's a bad school or a good school, but I did it. Even being in education as a teacher and someone in school communications, I looked on Google Maps and looked at the reviews. I looked on, review sites, and, I was thinking, all right, what's my resale value going to be? What's my, how's my, kid going to, fit in this neighborhood school? So we all do it. It's just, that's where, like I said, content marketing sort of comes in. We want them to make the best informed decisions, and we want to be the educational experts. So a lot of our social media was about helping the parent.
And what sort of return or engagement did you see when you started to kind of move to that model?
It was unbelievable. I mean, our engagement went up on social media. Our readership grew on our blogs, and our Facebook Live just went through the roof anytime we did that. And when I say Facebook Live, we just didn't put a camera at a pep rally. When we still do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But what we did is we had like round tables. We did a kindergarten live where we had a round table with 6 kindergarten teachers, and we allowed parents to comment or email in questions they had, and the teachers would answer them live on Facebook Live. And I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of people that watched and chimed in and asked more questions afterwards. So we had about 25,000 people watch that, just because it's such a big transitional shift when you're sending your kid to a school for the first time, in most cases when you're sending your kid to kindergarten. So we wanted to help them out and, help them just not even like talk about the school in general, just talk about processes like, what's carpool pickup like? Do they take naps in kindergarten? Will they learn to read in kindergarten? So it was just helping them know that they were making a great informed decision about choosing CFB or just choosing kindergarten in general. We wanted to make them feel more comfortable. So that's just another form of content marketing that we've used.
And so when you're doing things like going live or asking questions live, it's a great tool. There's incredible opportunity for engagement there. But I know a lot of school leaders have sort of the fear around that live piece, the same way that we as school PR professionals really have to sort of psych ourselves up for a press conference or a news interview, because it's harder to control that. So what's your advice for school districts who don't do a lot of live, either like Facebook Live or Instagram stories, anything like that, as far as sort of controlling that and maybe weeding through anything negative or any jeering that might come through? Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing with social media in general with a lot of our educators and a lot of our principals. That's the first thing I hear is, I'm scared to go out in public. I'm afraid I might mess up, or I'm afraid I'm going to put something out there that people are going to take the wrong way. So I think the first thing is, with like any marketing campaign or with anything that you're going to do in school communications, you have to have a plan before going in. And I wouldn't suggest that you just go into a live broadcast and just hit record and just start talking. Some people might have that ability, but very few people do. I would definitely plan out, even have like a script or at least a very strong outline of what you're going to cover and how you're going to cover it. Let the people that are going to be involved in the broadcast, get a heads up on what their questions are going to be, or give them, some examples of questions that might come up. And then just, plan and practice. And I always say the best thing you can do is know your audience and get the feedback from your audience. So the more you know about your audience is the better way you're going to be able to communicate with them, the kind of answers or questions they might, require. So I think knowing your audience is just the key, because that way you can develop your plan around what they want and how they want to take that in, and also just some of their pain points or some of their concerns, and you can definitely address those in your live broadcast. But yeah, being scared is natural. I would start off with doing some easier things where you don't have to really talk, maybe like broadcasting a pep rally or broadcasting a first day of school, greeting people. It doesn't have to necessarily be something very complex. But
maybe not take questions on your very first
day. Exactly. And definitely just do your research. Know that you have great people and strong people as being your experts. I mean, the whole definition of an expert is they need to be good at what they do. So don't just get just random people and just put something together very quickly at the spur of the moment. Definitely rehearse and, get the questions down and just know where you're going to go and how you're going to, have your beginning, middle, and end.
Okay, so Jason, I have to ask, what is your personal opinion and then your professional opinion on student takeovers on social media?
I love them. I mean,
do you really?
So personally, it has gotten us so many more new followers, so much more engagement from our student population that, from a personal thing, I'm like, oh yeah, my numbers are going up. So definitely from the personal. Professional, I think anytime you can use user-generated content, you're going to be better. I mean, if you think about it, who do you trust more? A salesperson, your school district, or your best friend, or your family members? So the more we can get our trusted people to provide content, that could be an influencer in the neighborhood, that could be a very popular teacher, that could be a leader of one of the student leaders. I think anytime you can get them to contribute, it's not just a sales gimmick, or you're not just doing it to get more likes and more followers on your Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. When students take it over, you're definitely going to get the trust and the buy-in from other students. And if you get teachers that do it, you're definitely going to get your staff more involved. So anytime you can use user-generated content, I think that's going to be a more trusted source, and it's going to get a lot more engagement because, I mean, let's face it, it's almost like the high school scenario, the Breakfast Club thing. When the popular kid does something, people are going to follow, and they're going to, tend to like it more and do that kind of stuff. So anytime you can do that, I highly suggest takeovers. I will tell you, the first couple of times we did Instagram takeovers with our drill teams and bands and things like that, we had 500, 600 new followers in 24 hours. So
did you not just sit on the edge of your seat and panic? Like, what if they do something and I have to pull it back and then we have to have a conversation? Was there no fear associated with that?
Okay, so I do a little bit different user takeovers or user generated content. So what I do is, we call it a takeover because they're basically 99% in control. But I always have an advisor on campus when they're there. And I actually, this is where the secret comes in. I actually have the students take the pictures in the moment, but the advisor is standing right by them, and they have to approve, and they actually have to click share on Instagram. So it's a little bit different, than the traditional takeover where you just give them a phone or an iPad and they go out for a day and just do it on their own. I give a little bit of precautions in there. But I've never had a student do anything inappropriate. I've never had a student do anything that is, bullying or anything like that. And I've always had a great experience. But there's always been that safety net of always having some type of advisor or some type of administrator, being the guide. And they usually use the administrator's phone, to tell you the truth, and they'll let them go out. And usually it's around some big event or some big campaign. So I won't just let them go out in the school and just, do a day in the life, which that might be okay. But it's usually around some big pep rally or homecoming or prom or the first football game, something like that, where we know we're going to get great content and we're going to know they're going to take it seriously because they want to show pride in their school.
I think that makes sense. So you were talking about user-generated content and how these people, you gained so many more followers when you had students post. I've heard you talk before about influencers, and I think everybody's familiar with the idea of influencers. I know I have a cousin who thinks that she needs to quit her job and become an Instagram influencer. Yeah. It's not actually that easy. So when you talk about influencers, are you talking about big celebrities that would endorse your district, or are you talking about something else?
I wish, but no.
Right.
Let's face it, like Kylie Jenner, I'm using her because she's one of the top influencers out there for companies, but she charges like $1.2 million an Instagram post. So
Is that not in your budget?
No, maybe Dallas ISD, but not CFB ISD. Just kidding, Dallas ISD, if you're listening. Anybody, even like a C-list celebrity, you just name someone that might have had a career 10 years ago, a district is probably not going to be able to afford them either. You're talking about $1,000 to $10,000 an Instagram post or a tweet. When I mean influencers, and I think even works better than these big macro influencers, are these micro influencers. And what I mean by micro is someone in your community that when they speak on social media or when they say something, people are going to listen. That could be a politician. That could be a PTA mom. There's a lot of mommy bloggers out there that have a big influence over the community and the way parents, think. It goes back to that whole content marketing approach. Even students, influencers. For instance, in CFB ISD, we have a young student that he's in high school, but he sings at Quinceañeras, and he has an Instagram following of about 50,000 people. So
wow.
You'd be surprised that you do have students out there that probably have those levels in your district. You just don't know. I just read an article, it's interesting, in I think it was Forbes magazine, that was talking about these kids that are having side hustles with vintage clothing. And what they're doing is they're going to like Goodwill and they'll buy these clothes and they'll just post themselves wearing it on Instagram, and then they'll sell it on these resale online stores. So you'd be surprised how many teenage influencers are actually out there. And, not someone that has 1 million followers, but, I consider a micro influencer 1,000 to 5,000 followers. So you have those leaders in your schools, you have your popular teachers, you have people in the community that if they say something, we all know the people that comment a lot on our Facebook, and then you have the city chatters and things like that, the Facebook pages that when they speak, people tend to listen, and they, anytime someone can influence someone to change their opinion or to follow along with something that's going to benefit the school district is, a big plus. So those influencers are out there. They could be a real estate agent. They could be, a PTA mom, like I said, but there are people out there that you can tap, and they don't have to have huge followings. They just have to have these niche followings within your district that are going to make a big impact.
So it's about having the right followers versus the high number.
Exactly, because really I'm not big on numbers when it comes to followers and that kind of thing. It really, that number really doesn't matter anymore. I think, so many people can buy likes. People that are their friends, or they can, manufacture, or you might just have a big family that, loves you a lot. But really, if it's not someone that has a vested interest in CFB ISD or the city community that you're in, like I could care less if I have 1,000 followers in Alaska. That doesn't matter to me as a school district. It matters to me that the people in Carrollton-Farmers Branch, Addison, Dallas, Capel, the cities that we represent, that they are going to follow us, and that it's the right audience, and it's that niche audience that are going to make a difference in our community.
And so since your career with Carrollton-Farmers Branch has been exclusively marketing, 6 years is a pretty long time, especially in school PR world, where we talk about, dog years, where I feel like I've only been doing school PR 4 years, but it feels like 40. What's the district like now compared to when you joined? And then kind of how have you tweaked that marketing as you've continued?
Yeah, so definitely, when I first started, it was more about, just sort of getting my feet wet. And I was never in strategic communications. I did video, but I was never in strategic communications. So a lot of the stuff that I learned was from outside the world of education, just articles that I read, sort of mirroring other companies that have, can invest $1 million in research on what works and things like that. So now that, I was able to go to Inspira, T-Spira, and learn from my other colleagues and get a lot of knowledge that way. But also I still spend quite a bit, like every morning when I come into work, I don't look at my competitors as much. I do, always look at the districts around us and see what they're doing, but I look at Forever 21, Urban Outfitters. I mean, like I said, they spend millions of dollars to know what colors work, to what messagings work, things like that. So, it's one of those things where the way I approach things is slightly different, just because I know more. I'm a little bit more familiar with strategic communications, but our enrollment is starting to go up. We have a new superintendent that is really big into marketing and and promotion. So it's become a little bit different in the fact that we're doing more events. So you have the digital awareness that we're creating through social media and through digital marketing and digital Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, podcasting, things like that. But we're also transitioning that to when we get the buy-in, when we get them down the marketing funnel, that we are starting to do some traditional things as well. That, event marketing has become a huge part of what we do. Before, is one of those things where we did it every once in a while, but now we basically have an event a month. That could be, anything from high school, exploration events to elementary open houses. And, we always did that kind of stuff. We're making it a lot bigger of a deal. And just like the last 2 days, we had our opening of school ceremonies. Some people call it convocation. And then last night we had a community pep rally where we had all of our high schools represented at the pep rally, and it was an hour and a half long, just celebration of athletics and fine arts at our football stadium. So it's just one of those good deals where we can still market and put out some of our traditional advertising through those events. So I think we're concentrating a lot more on events, and we're fine tuning the way we're doing things. I mean, we've done a lot of video. I'm also very big on audio. I think with the Amazon Echoes, the Google Homes, that a lot more people are going to be consuming audio, even more than video maybe in the future, because it's just an easier medium. You don't have to, I shouldn't say concentrate as much, but you don't have to be multitasking by watching something and listening. You can have, a podcast on in the background. You can listen to it on their way to your commute and things like that. So I'm really big on audio. So we're exploring that as well. So there's just things that I'm sort of looking at the trends. We're still doing content marketing, doing that. We've even upped the way we're going to do things, but, social media advertising, just getting where their audiences are at and just getting more familiar with the audience has really helped me, sort of fine tune and sort of develop a niche in the way we're doing our stuff. And I think the last thing I'll say about how it's changed is we're definitely becoming a lot more personal, or putting personalization into what we do. Before it was sort of just blanket things that we put out there. Now we're creating kindergarten email lists. We're creating, pre-K communities. We're, advertising just to middle school people making the transition to ninth grade. So we definitely drilled down and tried to find more unique audiences and do a lot more niche marketing than we had before.
And so with all of these different things that you're doing and all the different mediums that you're hitting, you obviously must have a marketing team of 35 people, right? To do all these things?
I wish. So it's me under marketing, and then I have a webmaster and a graphic designer, and we do have a videographer as well. So that does help. I'm not going to lie and say that I could do this all myself, because that is definitely not true. But I think when it comes down to how many people you have in your department, I think anywhere from a one person team to, a 10-person team that some of these districts might have, I think there's still things that hold true, knowing your audience, getting, a visual and audio platform out there. But I think more than anything, we can divide and conquer a little bit easier, but I think it still comes down to knowing the audience and putting out the content they want to see. So it doesn't mean you have to be big like some of these districts and put out content, every single second, but consistency helps. But I definitely think that anybody could do this. It's just, just sort of knowing your audience and knowing your limitations and knowing what you can do. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't, try to do something that's going to just be crazy and, unattainable. I think you definitely need to start, stick with that SMART goals where, specific, measurable, attainable is the big one, so
Right.
I think that definitely, just judge the way you're going to do things, but there are different things you can do to automate or streamline the process that can definitely help you out.
You mentioned that you guys started with a marketing approach because you had so much local competition. Do you think that this is vital for all school districts, regardless of if they're seeing competition or not? Or is this just kind of the way that you start to tackle it when you are starting to see a lot of competition?
I mean, I definitely think that you need to do it sooner than later. I think that all of us are going to experience competition, if not now, in the near future. I mean, if you just think of the way society is going, you know, online classes, anybody could take a class anywhere, or just go on
Right.
YouTube for that matter, and just look at a whole lesson of how to do algebra rather than go to your classroom. So I mean, with online competition and just, so many districts opening their boundaries to have open districts, and then just people really are able to move to where they want to be now. I mean, a lot of more people are working at home. A lot more people, are choosing, places to live based on school districts. It's always been that way, but it's a lot easier to research and things like that. So I definitely think that if you're not doing marketing, you need to get going and get started. It's always great to promote yourself. And not only are you going to increase enrollment, but you're going to increase community support. I mean, with school financing, things like that, bonds are
Mhm.
always in, or, tax ratification things are always something that school districts always have to think that could be happening in the future. And if you're not marketing your community, to your community, and telling all the great things that are happening and telling your stories, then, sooner or later it's not going to work out for you. You're not going to be able to pass the bonds. You're not going to be able to
Mhm.
get more kids in the seats. You're not going to convince people to stay in your school district. So I think marketing at any level, or any school district size, no matter competition or not, is going to become vital. And I think it needs to start like right now.
Start right now. I believe there's a book called that. Okay, so Jason, we're asking every single person. Our final question for everyone is tell us about a moment in your life that was changed because of an educator. We all have the ability to do the work that we're doing in other industries, but we're all choosing education. Why did you pick education? Who influenced you?
Well, there's three people really, but Miss Cole in third grade, she was actually a professional clown. I started loving third grade because she brought magic and humor into the classroom. So that's and then I hurt my knee playing baseball in high school my freshman year, and so I joined journalism. That probably changed my life in the way of me becoming a better writer and getting into the video and getting into the writing. But I say the biggest influence on my educational career was Scott Parks, and I actually graduated from the same district I work in now, so he's actually still a teacher. But
Very
he
cool.
was my economics teacher my junior year of high school. He was so fun. He was so passionate. He was so energetic. I shifted what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a news reporter. I shifted to economics and business, and that's why I sort of chose marketing as my major in college. But he just made such a big impact on the way he went about doing his class. And I think just his passion, enthusiasm, I sort of modeled the way when I was a teacher after he taught students. I was the teacher that jumped on the desk. I would, freestyle rap and things like that in the class, and just did a lot of hands-on projects. Um, I was doing project-based learning before there was PBL, so I was just all into that. So I think he made the biggest impact on my life of wanting to give back to younger people and just choose education as a career.
That's amazing, Jason. I hope you've taken the time to tell him that too.
Yes, definitely.
All right, Jason, I know that there are going to be people who want to reach out to you and utilize some of your expertise because I agree with you. You've got to start this sooner rather than later. Where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, definitely. So hit me up on Twitter. I know a lot of our school PR friends and professionals are on Twitter. So I am at Wheeler CFB. That's at WHEELER CFB. And I also have a website where I have a blog and videos, things like that talk about some of the things that I talked about today and a lot of other stuff. You can find me at www.jasonawheeler.com. You got to put that A in there. You're going to go to some bird site. I don't know why it's jasonwheeler.com. It's a bird site, but jasonawheeler.com. You can watch videos. You can look at my blogs, and you can also watch some of my speaking engagements that I've done over the past year.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. This has been a great conversation. I know that everyone's really going to enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much, Erin. I enjoyed it a lot.